Stand by.
Hey guys, welcome to the channel. My name's Dan. I am currently a USPSA Masterclass shooter in limited optics and A-class and carry optics. And shoot a little bit of PCSL, one gun as well. But currently I want to talk about my current carry optics setup. And first of all, I gotta show clear for the YouTube Nazis. So we got clear, nothing in the chamber, nothing in the mag well. So this is my primary carry optics setup. It is the Smith & Wesson Competitor HD in 9mm, of course. And this is a steel framed 5-inch handgun. Why did I choose the M&P platform? Well, I started off shooting Glocks, and until recently I've shot Glocks like maybe the past, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I lost count. But basically I started shooting handguns with Glock. And I first started shooting competition with my Glock 19, and I had a Glock 47 as well. The Glock 19 I had was the C version. It was compensated from the factory, and I was a little brave or stupid, however you want to say it, but I shot open with that when I first started USPSA. So I've always shot Glocks up until, I would say, probably like mid last year of 2025. I was a big time Glock fan. I started developing like kind of like pain in my wrist and my elbows, and it's kind of like tennis elbow. But I was wondering, why, what the heck? I mean, why did this start now? And I started heavily shooting the Glock. Probably had like, on the 19, I probably had like 11,000 rounds in about 5 or 6 months. For me, that was a high volume of fire in a short period of time. And I believe that the way that Glock forces you to push down the gun to obtain the sight picture, I believe that's what caused most of my minor injuries. So once that happened, I was like, well, I'm going to start exploring different options that were out there in the handgun world. And I came across staccatos, got into the double stack 1911s or 2011s, however you want to say it. I got into that, and immediately I realized, oh wow, this world is way better. Just the ergonomics on the double stack 1911 platform was just night and day difference over Glock. And I started shooting that platform, and I immediately started noticing that the slight pain that I had and the injuries had gone away, no matter how heavy I was shooting. Even though that I was still shooting a good amount of rounds, I wasn't feeling as much pain anymore. And I realized that it was the less extreme angle that the double stack 1911 platform offered, and it was just a more pleasant experience to shoot overall. So why did I get back into strikers? I wanted to shoot different divisions. Obviously you can't shoot double stack 1911 in carry optics, and I wanted to shoot a division that allowed me to have very similar platform to what I carry on a day-to-day basis. For a brief period of time, I did carry a Kimber 2K11, but it just a little bit too heavy, too much for everyday carry. So I wanted to go back to a striker platform. So, and my everyday carry is an M&P 2.0, the polymer, not the metal frame. So I wanted to stay pretty much similar to something that I carry on a day-to-day basis for competition. Now I could shoot the the M&P compact, but as you can see, it is comped. In competition, that would put me right into open, and that is not a very good comp to shoot open with. That comp barely does anything, and it's definitely not worth to shoot open with that. So I decided to keep it in the M&P family because it is something that I do carry. I decided to go with the Competitor HD. Now, I traded that 2K11 that I mentioned earlier. I traded that 2K11 Pro pretty much straight up for this. Now, 2K11 Pro, I had probably about 6,000 rounds on it, and it performed flawlessly. No issues with it. Well, when I traded the 2K11 for this was brand new. The guy literally just bought it that day and saw my post. I'm not going to say where because I don't want Meta coming after me, but he saw my post where I was giving up my 2K11, and he was local, and he saw it, and he's like, "Hey, I just bought an M&P Competitor HD. Are you interested?" And I was like, "That's exactly what I'm looking for." So I was like, "Hell yeah!" So I made the drive that day. We met up that day, and I traded straight up for this. It was just the gun, no optic, nothing special. It was basically just straight from the factory. So it had no optic, no plate system, nothing that you obviously nothing that you see here. So when I traded the 2K11 Pro for this, this was basically straight from the factory. He had just bought it brand new, and I think he just picked it up that same day, earlier that day. So when it came to me, it was just straight from the box, brand new. So the reason for the Competitor HD specifically, as compared to say a polymer frame or the aluminum frame, actually M&P has an aluminum framed Competitor. I think that was the OG Competitor, and that was an aluminum frame that they came out with before the steel. So the reason why I decided to go with this over the polymer and the aluminum, well, let's just be honest, this thing is a tank. It weighs, as is right now, it weighs about a little over 40 ounces, but I believe from the factory, they came at around 36 or 37 ounces. And it all comes down to preference. I'm mainly coming from the 2011 world, which all mine are steel frames, so they all weigh over 40 ounces. They're all pretty hefty, some close to 50 ounces actually. So I decided to go with the steel version for the weight. People, and it comes down to preference. Some people choose the polymer, and it's polymers, nothing wrong with that. It's great. Some people like it over the metal framed, either steel or aluminum, because it absorbs recoil a little bit better. And for 9mm, like I said, it's all preference anyway. Polymer frame does flex under recoil, so it absorbs that felt recoil a little better. And of course, the weight is weighs way less than anything metal, aluminum or steel. So polymer for competition. I know a lot of people do it, obviously, with Glocks and the polymer M&Ps and Canics and whatever. There's a lot of polymer competition guns out there, and like I said, it just comes down to preference, and I just prefer weight over a frame that absorbs recoil. And it's to be honest, it's a 9mm. It's not going to. It doesn't have a lot of recoil. It's not like a 40. It's not like a 10. So managing this recoil, whether it's polymer or steel or whatever, it's just it's incredibly effortless. And I do know M&P offers a 5-inch, not a competitor version, but just a regular 5-inch slide, 5-inch barrel, polymer framed M&P. I know a couple shooters that are about the same level as me. They're M-class guys. They're, fantastic guys, fantastic shooters. And one of them has, I believe he said, I think 20-something thousand rounds on his 5-inch polymer, and he loves it. I don't think he shot the steel version yet, but his polymer version, he loves it. Obviously, competes with it a lot, and I've seen pictures of it. It's been ragged the hell out, right? It's been shot, and he loves it. But again, it all comes down to preference. Me, I prefer just the extra weight. So let's compare this with a Glock. A Glock, obviously polymer frame. It's not going to be as heavy, but even comparing it to a polymer Smith & Wesson, I am not a fan anymore, right? Once I got a taste of this in the 2011s and 1911s, I am no longer a fan of the Glock grip angle. Some people prefer it, but again, it's all preference. Whether you choose a polymer, aluminum, actually don't do the aluminum, or steel. So polymer and steel. Aluminum shouldn't even be in the equation right now. You know what? Let's talk about the aluminum. So the aluminum is just a few ounces heavier than the polymer. Increased cost of the aluminum for not much benefit for what metal is supposed to be or supposed to provide. Because it doesn't provide a whole lot of weight difference over the polymer, it does take away the polymer feel. Like I said, it absorbs the felt recoil, but the aluminum doesn't really do anything better than the polymer, other than just cost more. So what do I like about the M&P platform over, say, Glock? Well, other than the grip angle, obviously, especially with this trigger, I think M&P is moving towards more of the performance center triggers across all the platforms. The older ones were like a hinged trigger. This is more flat, and I know a lot of people hated that hinge trigger. Some people love it. It's preference, but me for one, I've tried it before and I did not like it at all. So the performance center trigger comparing it to the Glock trigger, this just it blows Glock out of the water. There is no comparison on that. Glock, as we all know, is probably the worst striker fired triggers. If you want to compare this to see where it sits in between amongst the striker fires, I would say the Walther PDP. I think it's performance enhanced trigger. I forget what it's called, but their version of their performance trigger, it's probably one of the best striker fire triggers that I've ever tried. I just don't prefer. I prefer a lower bore axis. I know the PDP is kind of high, and a lot of people complain about it being too snappy. It is a bit snappier because of that high bore axis, but again, some people just love PDP, love the trigger, and want to go with that, but that's all preference. Me, I went with M&P because grip angle. This comes in steel, right? And the trigger on it, the performance center trigger, is actually not that bad. I have tried it on the my trigger pull gauge, and it comes right around 5 pounds. So when I first got the handgun, the trigger was a little gritty right out of the box from the factory, but it definitely smoothed out a lot after a few thousand rounds, and probably like 10 times that in dry firing. But it has definitely smoothed out, and obviously it's better than a factory Glock, but it's also better than I had a Johnny Glock trigger, and in my opinion that just wasn't a whole lot different. It was better than a factory, but just didn't provide a whole lot of difference. This is just, compared to a Glock trigger, whether factory or using a Johnny Glock or anything like that, this is just much better option, much better feel. So some people don't like the amount of travel that the M&P, the factory M&P has. Me personally, it's preference, but me personally, it doesn't bother me because it's so smooth, and there is a very defined wall, and once you hit that wall, it's actually a pretty clean break. It's not that bad for a factory trigger. It is not that bad, and The brake is pretty crisp. The over travel, very minimal. And the reset, I know a lot of people complain about this reset. Reset is not very audible or tactile. It's right there. I can barely feel it. But that all comes down to preference. Anyway, for me, I do not ride the reset when I'm shooting. So not feeling the reset or hearing it, like you're going to hear it anyway while shooting. But either way, that reset does not bother me because I don't ride it. When I'm shooting, I am slapping the ever-living hell out of that trigger. But that comes down to training and being able to manipulate the trigger at speed without bothering your sights. So let's talk about grip angle. So again, my history, my past, I went from Glock to double stack 1911s. So I went from that Glock grip angle, which is around, I think, 22 degrees. As for me, too extreme, right? But then I went to the double stack 1911, the 2011 grip angle, which is around 18 degrees, and I was like, oh, this is so much better, right? Smith & Wesson advertises this grip as 18 degrees as well. I don't believe that. It may be advertised as 18 degrees. It actually may be 18 degrees, as they say. However, I feel that it sits somewhere in between a Glock and a 1911. So it doesn't, to me, it does not feel like 18 degrees. It feels more like maybe 19 or 20. Because when I present with one of my staccatos, and then I go back and present with this, it is not the same. I will have to push down just a little bit when I'm presenting to immediately find the dot. That all comes down to training and repetitions. Now I can go back and forth between the platforms pretty seamlessly after a few dry fire reps. So now that we're talking about the trigger, let's do a few trigger pulls on my Wheeler gauge here and see where we're at. It's around 4 pounds. Where is it? Just under 5 pounds, so 4 pounds, 8.8 ounces. Let's go back. Oops, I'm trying to get it right where my finger usually is. And 5.07 ounces. So I think my first one wasn't correctly on the trigger right there. So 4 pounds, 15 ounces. And let's do one more. 4 pounds, 11 ounces. Let's do one more. Enter. 5 pounds, 2 ounces. So I don't think I can get it exactly on the same spot every time, but enter. So for 5 trigger pulls, the average is 4 pounds and 14 ounces. I think the Glock 47 that I had was around, it was Gen 5. I think it was around 6.5 pounds from the factory. So even with not being very good with this, obviously, it's still about a pound and a half lighter than the Glock factory trigger. All right, now let's talk about what probably nobody cares about, is the iron sights that comes with the Smith & Wesson Competitor HD. The rear iron sights, they're connected via, I guess that's an Allen screw. They are adjustable. You just loosen that Allen screw and you push it however you need it to be. And the front, unlike a Glock, the Glock has a little screw on the other side of the slide, but this one is a push style front sight, and it comes with a fiber optic. They're not very high, so they're not going to co-witness with any dot that you choose, really. They're mainly for people who, for some reason, decide to shoot production, which, you know, nobody shoots production anymore. Everybody shoots with a dot now. So these are completely pointless for me. But I guess for some people that matters. I'm not one of them. All right, since we're on the topic of sights, let's talk about the optic plate plates, plural, right, that comes with the M&P. They are shit. They are plastic. They really don't do anything but fill in the gap between the slide and the optic. So they're complete trash. I didn't even try it. I didn't even mount one with it. I just threw them away in the trash as soon as I got home. So the optic plate that I run is from Forward Control Design. It is for the RMR footprint, and it is solid, completely solid. I use FCD for my everyday carry. This is obviously for the acro. Their plates are a little thick compared to like some other ones on the market. I can't think of off the top of my head, but there's one plate that is pretty thin. I think they make it out of titanium, so it's strong, but it can be also be made thinner, and it'll sit a little lower onto the slide, which, I mean, let's be honest, what's the reason other than increased cost? Because you're not going to co-witness with these iron sights anyway. So I went with the cheaper option, the option that I know works, the company that I know makes good products. The screws that I used are not from Holosun. They are from Jaegerworks. Jaegerworks makes way better screws, mounting screws, than what's going to come with Holosun. Even with Trijicon RMR and all that, they just make some really, really great screws specifically for whatever optic you want to run too. So these screws are specifically made for the 407/507 comp series from Holosun. All right, so let's talk about some of the little knickknacks that the competitor comes with. One of them, of which is the factory magwell. In case you want to run this for limited optic. I'm going to tell you right now, this thing is absolute trash. The mags, with that magwell on, mags get hung up. Reloads with that magwell get hung up. It weighs nothing. I mean, it's just absolute horrible design. If you want to get a magwell, go with, I would go with something like Floyd's magwell. It's a way better design. The inside is just way smoother. The beveling is the angle of the beveling is way better than the factory. You can actually see the difference between the two. But I don't run this unless I'm using this as a backup for my limited optics, because a magwell will put me in limited optics, and you cannot run a magwell in carry optics. So the Competitor HD also comes with a buffet of different palm swells that you can fit on the back of your frame. For the longest time I was running, what is this, medium large. You can see all my chalk is still on there. This worked pretty good. No complaints really. Everybody's hands are different. I have medium to large, I think medium to large kind of hands. I ran the medium large palm swell, and it was great. What was missing, however, was on my support grip, there was no material for my support hand for this area right here to grab onto. So I did some research. I had a buddy that runs Mischief Design palm swells, and this is what this is. It's the Mischief Design palm swell. It kind of mimics, let me get my ADC, it kind of mimics an Atlas. If you've seen an Atlas grip, it's got a little step in the middle of the grip, and what that allows is more of the frame to grab into that empty space in your palm for your support hand. And that just allows the grip to fill in the space on your support hand a little bit better, so you get more bite, you get more meat onto the frame of the gun. And the back of it is a little swelled as well. very similar to some 2011 grips that I use as well. So for factory offerings, the palm swells or the back straps that come with the gun are not bad. My hands, my preference, I just needed a little bit more substance for my hands to grab onto, my support hand mainly to grab onto. You can see where it cuts into because I have so much carbide on there. You can see where that ledge bites into, and it allows me just to get a better overall grip onto the gun. So speaking of the silicon carbide, as you can see here, my EDC doesn't have it on the back strap right here. So this is how it comes from the factory, or from Mischief Designs. The stippling is a little more aggressive than factory stippling, but I live in Southeast Texas where it can be 85 degrees ambient temp, but the humidity is going to make it close to 100, and as soon as you step outside you're just dripping in sweat. So other than just constantly using chalk and having that chalk sweat off and end up getting on mags, getting inside the mag well, getting inside the gun. I mean, I'd shoot a match and I would have chalk literally inside the frame of the gun. I'm like, well, I need to do something different. So I went with silicon carbide. I've had a few friends do this mod on their M&Ps, and I think even a Prodigy 1911. And I was like, well, I need something better than chalk, or to definitely help supplement chalk use. And I went with 71 Creative, and they offer kits, silicon carbide kits that come with the carbide. It comes with epoxy, mixing sticks. I think they have brushes too that come with it. They're reasonably priced, right? But this is buying this by itself and just buying epoxy and then using the wife's painting brushes. It was just a cheaper option to go. And I've also found that this is about the size that they come in, and this is after coating this. So I still have over half of a bottle. Everywhere else that I've looked for silicon carbide comes in bulk packages of, like, I don't know, I think 5 pounds is the smallest that I found. That's just way too much for what I'm gonna do. And on the website they say that one bottle will do maybe 2 handguns, and I think he's being extremely conservative on that because I'm still at over half, and I coated this one frame with that bottle, and I could probably do 2 more frames with this same bottle. So he's being very conservative with his estimate, and I think this is a real good value. It wasn't too much. I think it was like maybe $20 for each one of these bottles, and they last, you know, a good while. But you can go with this kit, or you can just buy these individually and get your epoxy at whatever, Lowe's, Amazon, what have you. And I like to use 30-minute epoxy. It gives me time to really get this where I want it to be and do some cleanup if I have to. I think I did 1, 2, 3. I think I did about 5 coats on this. Between each coat, I would lightly pat it down, and then I would see the epoxy getting soaked up by the granules, and I would just keep coating and coating until I stopped seeing sections of the epoxy coming up, and then I just let it dry. It was actually good to go in a few hours. I could handle it in a few hours, but definitely gave it like 24 hours to set before I actually started shooting with it. But I went with for this one, for my competition. So there are different grit selections on his website. For my competition setup, I went with 20 grit, and that is the most aggressive grit that he offers. Do I recommend going 20 grit? No. I would probably go a few, especially if this is your first time using silicon carbide. I would probably go a few. I think he offers a 40-60. I would probably go with a 40-60 rather than just jump straight to the 20. Main reason is not everybody likes that, because this will make you bleed. But this, with supplementing a little bit of chalk, is the chef's kiss, especially in the environment like Southeast Texas or anywhere along the Gulf Coast where humidity is in 80%, 90% humidity, and it'd be like 110 heat index. After shooting a match all day, your gun's going to be coated in chalk. This way, I don't have to use as much chalk, and it helps out, especially towards like the end of a stage where you're really huffing and puffing and get some good sweat in. This definitely helps out, and it helps keep the gun fairly clean, especially the mag well, because I did notice that a lot of chalk would get in there, and mags would end up not dropping as freely as they should be, causing me frustrations and causing me to bomb classifiers. And that is my excuse. So let's talk about the magazines that come with the Competitor HD. First of all, it is a gun meant for competition. So why does M&P send me 17 round mags? Now you see this, you would think, oh, maybe it's a +2, maybe, right? Maybe I can get 20 rounds in there. No, this does nothing because it's hollow. So all that is really is just for show. It looks better, and it gives you something to grab onto if you gotta yank that mag out for malfunctions, or if you're got too much chalk inside and it won't drop freely. But for the most part, that is just for show. So what did I do to fix that? So I went with Floyd's +5, I think this is a +5 magazine extension. So it takes a 17 round factory M&P mag to about 22. I can squeeze 23. It might be a +6 because I can squeeze 23 in here, but for general purpose shooting a match, I will normally load my my reload mags to about 22, 21, 22, and then my initial mag will be at as much as I can get in this thing, probably about 23 rounds. And of course I will do a 23 +1, so I'll have about 24 rounds at the start of a stage. But these, compared to the Floyd's, it's a little longer. The Floyd's does stay USPSA legal. If I can get that on camera, but you can see it's a little bit longer. Obviously it's aluminum, so it's got that little extra weight to it. It's going to help it drop freely, and you get more surface area to grab onto and yank out if you have to. The Floyd's, in addition to offering the extended base plate, they also have the option to buy the extra power spring in there. And I've tried just using the Floyd's extension on a factory spring that came in the 17 rounder. It works. I did not have any malfunctions, but it just did not give me a whole lot of confidence, because when I loaded it, it was pretty easy and the rounds did not spit out with much force. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and spend the extra whatever, $10. I don't even know how much they cost. They're not that much, but they come in packs of 3, and I'm just going to spend that extra bit of money for the extra reliability and assurance, especially because I also use these for when I carry as well. So I just wanted them to feed reliably and not have to worry about them, and it saved a lot of frustration in competition as well. Things just go so much better when things are working right. So a little bit on what I've done for the internals. This is not a factory guide rod or spring. This is a Floyd's guide rod and Floyd's 13-pound spring. Don't quote me. I think it's a 13-pound spring because the factory one was like 15, I believe. So either way, this is a reduced powered recoil spring and their guide rod. So Floyd's guide rod, the way that it disassembles is just much easier, much more convenient than the Smith & Wesson factory guide rod. So if you're going to be swapping out springs, if you're going to be experimenting with springs, you all like to tinker with our toys, right? I would go with Floyd's guide rod. It just makes things a lot easier to take apart, put back together. And I think I got about 3,000 rounds on this specific setup, the spring and guide rod combo. And I have not had any issues with it loosening up on me or really any kind of odd wear marks, wear issues on it. It's been absolutely perfect. So now let's talk about the slide release that I have on it. So the primary reason why I went with a slide release is because my grip, I have a high grip on the gun. My support hand is high up on the gun. The factory slide release, because of my high grip on my support hand, would cause a lot of grinding at the base of my support thumb, and eventually got to the point where it created a callus, and that callus ripped during the match, and it was not pleasant to shoot the rest of the match with basically a hole at the base of my support thumb. So I went with this extended slide release. This is made by how you say that? Primatia, I don't know. But it's what popped up when I Googled slide release for the M&P platform. And it turns out a lot of people actually use this. I like it. It gets it up out of the way of my support hand. I don't have that issue of it digging into the base of my thumb. Negatives, I guess, depends on who you are and what you prefer for this platform, the Competitor HD platform, the steel framed. This slide release does not work 100% of the time. It will not, on an empty mag, it will not reliably slide or lock the slide back. Is that an issue? For some it might be. For some it's not. For me, it's not an issue. This is a competition gun. I modify most of my stuff, my other mags, my 1911 mags, I modify all those mags with followers that will not lock the slide back. So it's a non-issue for me. Now, when I try to manually lock the slide back, even that is not 100% all the time. Is it an issue? For me, it's not. Because when I unload and show clear, I'm holding the slide back and I'm showing clear and I'm letting go. And I'm letting the trigger go forward. I'm not sliding it back. In competition shooting, USPSA, talking about USPSA, unloaded starts are not started with the slide locked back, right? Slides forward. So for me, that is not an issue. For some, for you, maybe it is. For me, it's not. Now that was for the steel frame. As you noticed, I also have that on my everyday carry, my polyformer frame. Now this, see, I don't know what the difference is between this frame and this frame, but on this frame, everything works way better with that extended slide release. It locks back way better. I get slide lock automatically 100% of the time. Sometimes my support hand will, hit that a little bit right there. It'll hit that a little bit and cause the slide not to lock back. But again, it is not an issue for me because I am a competition shooter. I set up all my stuff all my magazines with followers that will not lock the slide back on my double stack 1911s. Alright, let's talk about the barrel of the Competitor HD. It comes fluted from the factory. Nothing really special about it, other than it looks pretty, right? Some people have accuracy issues with this barrel. I have not seen that. It actually locks up pretty well for a factory run-of-the-mill mass-produced firearm. So I have not had the accuracy issue that some people report. I think mostly the groups open up on them at 25 yards. I say, can you really tell the difference between the barrel's accuracy and your accuracy? That's debatable, I guess. Alright, so talking about the factory slide. The M&P Competitor HD from the factory comes with these cuts already built into them. And people are especially going to like this one because it allows you to easily port the factory barrel. And also I think Floyd's makes a cut, a compensator cut for this opening, this window up here as well. So M&P makes it pretty easy for you to modify and port your barrel without setting off the slide to get additional cuts or anything like that. So if that's your thing, that just makes it a little easier for you. If I wanted to, I can shoot 3 divisions with one gun. I can shoot carry optics, I can shoot limited optics, just adding a mag well, and I can shoot open. If I'm brave enough, I can shoot open with just a ported barrel, right? That's just another plus that M&P offers from the factory. Me personally, since I'm just going to shoot this in carry optics and limited optics, me personally, I like these slide cuts. It lightens the slide to where it doesn't cycle like it doesn't feel like a 5-inch gun, really. It feels a little quicker than your run-of-the-mill 5-inch slide, and it reciprocates a little bit quicker, and it actually feels, the dot return and all that feels very similar to my carry. And I think the carry is a 4.25 inch slide. So when it comes to the optic choice, it comes down to preference again. For competition use, I know a lot of people like to use the bigger windowed optics, such as the SRO, the 407 comp, 507 comp, the Vortex Defender XL. I went with the Holosun 407 comp. I did not need the reticle choices that the 507 comp offers. I prefer the 6 MOA dot for the 407 comp over the 2 MOA dot from the 507. Now with the 507 you can change the reticle where you can have the 2 MOA dot and then bigger circles, so they can be up to an 8 MOA reticle with the dot and the circle combination. But 6 MOA dot for me has been the chef's kiss, right, for competition use. And a lot of people will frown upon Holosun or any kind of Chinese optics, and I don't blame them, because they used to be not the greatest, but Holosun has really stepped up their game in the optics world in the past few years, past 5 years or so. They're starting to eat the lunch of more American made and some Swiss made optics, right? So my choice for this competition setup was between the SRO, the Acro P2, and this. So I chose this over the SRO because at the time the SRO only offered, I think, a 2.5 MOA dot. It wasn't a very big dot, right? And they only had that one choice. Recently, Trijicon got their act together, right, and came out with I think it's a 5 MOA dot for competition use. However, the SRO is like twice the price of this. I've seen, personally at matches, I've seen more than one SRO fail. The glass, mostly I've seen the glass just pop out in the middle of a match. Obviously, Trijicon will take care of you. They got some good customer service. I personally have not seen any failures of the 407/507 comp at matches. Is it duty rated? No, it's not duty rated. It's meant for competition. The window is huge. Now they're coming out with a Pro Max that's going to be even bigger than this, and I'm curious. I'm definitely going to try one when they come out. But for now, this window size is and the dot size is perfect for my use. And I love Trijicon. Are you taking notes? I love the side battery. So in summary, the M&P Competitor HD, if you shoot a lot of competition, this is a very good choice. It offers the weight and the balance that you will definitely take advantage of in competition. The trigger is phenomenal for a factory striker, not including, PDP, which is the king of striker fire triggers, obviously. But this is a very, very good handgun for competition in carry optics. And I would even shoot this in limited optics. If I didn't have 1911s, 2011s, I would also shoot this in limited optics. I would not feel inadequate going up against 1911s or 2011s with this handgun. This thing, in comparison to my staccatos, dare I say, I much prefer the overall shooting experience of the Competitor HD over the staccatos that I have. Granted, the trigger on the staccatos is obviously way better than anything striker could come close to, but the overall experience, overall feel of the Competitor HD, in my opinion, is just a better experience when shooting matches. Thanks for listening to my rant, I guess. I hope you found this video a little helpful in deciding what you would like to go with as far as a competition handgun in USPSA or PCSL. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. This is a new channel that I'm trying to get off the ground. I will be having a lot of match shooting, maybe some training tutorials on being a better shooter, match shooter. We'll have more reviews of this, like this, such as I'll probably do a review on my carry M&P. I'll probably do reviews on my staccatos, how I set them up and whatnot. But again, like, comment, subscribe. The content will get better as I get better at it. This is really my first time doing this, so patience. Better things are yet to come. Thanks again.